Hey good people, Batavia here. I've been waiting all season to talk to y'all exclusively about container gardening. Alright, so if you're someone that grows in raised beds or in ground and have no desire to grow in containers, it's okay if you click away. I hope you stay though. If you're someone that grows in containers, if you're someone that wants to start a garden and kind of are trying to figure out the hows and the whys and the wheres, this is going to be for you. Before I dig in, because I have a few different housekeeping items, one of them is if you're growing in containers and you love it, share below where you're growing at, the size containers that you love to grow in, and the what. Like, what's your favorite vegetable or herb or fruit that you love to grow in? I'm sure I'm going to take away something from it, and my hope is that other people that read the comments will too. All right, so that's my assignment to y'all. I hope you accept the assignment. All right, housekeeping item number 2, big thank yous to those who like, watch, comment, share, and subscribe to Be Better Garden. I appreciate y'all. If you haven't subscribed already, consider it. In addition to container gardening, we do a lot of raised bed gardening and growing of all of the things. I'm in Chicago, Illinois, and I garden in zone 6. Probably more importantly, my average first frost date is November the 1st. My average last frost date coming into the spring is April the 17th. So that matters a lot when it comes to a lot of the annual things I'm growing. The garden zone probably is more relative to the perennial plants, but we don't want to get too far off track. We're going to do a full-on container garden tour. All right, so this year I'm probably in the middle of kind of the fewest and the most containers I've grown in. I've gone 30 containers of varying sizes over the years. I've done as many as 60. This year we're hovering around 40 containers that we're actively growing in. Primarily vegetables and herbs with a sprinkling of strawberries. I won't bury the lead. The only fruit I'm growing would be strawberries in containers. I want to talk about my 5 things that are, I think, critical to growing in containers. One is the container size. That's the starting point, right? So 20-gallon containers all the way down to 2.5 gallons. A good example of this Roma tomato plant, which is a determinate, it can grow really well in a 20-gallon container. It can grow, in my experience, pretty well in a 10-gallon size. I've seen people grow them in 5 gallons. I've not had great luck with that, but I would never plant it in a 2.5-gallon container. While there is a determinate size this plant's going to get, the root ball system along with all the nutrients this plant needs, that 2.5-gallon container just isn't going to give it to me. All right, so keep in mind what you're growing and the size of container you're growing in, and even the time of year. So this soil is going to dry out more often in the summer than it would if I was growing something that's more cool weather like in the spring or fall. All right, number 2, soil. It makes a difference. So I have grown in a lot of these standalone containers year over year, so I have so much used or spent soil in bins all over the place, and so I'm continuing to refresh that soil each year, and I have a video on the channel which I'll link where I walk through step by step how I do that if I'm making up soil brand new or if I am amending soil. Now, the only exception I've made to that rule is for my green stalks. The very first year that I'm planting in them, I am using bagged potting soil to give them the best chance at the best start. And then in year 2, I'll just amend that soil by again adding some additional nutrients, a little bit of compost. I'll mix things up a bit. So that is soil. I am never using strictly topsoil in a container. I'm never using strictly garden soil. That tends to be too dense for these containers, and it doesn't allow the soil to drain as much as you want, and it doesn't allow those plants to thrive. There's just not enough kind of airflow within that soil. That actually brings me to drainage. These grow bags are great in that they have built-in drainage. I've used them year over year. I, generally speaking, like growing in them. I do think that during the summer, they tend to dry out a bit more than other containers, but that, I'm not certain. But other containers, like the plastic containers you'll see, I'll drill holes in the bottom and sometimes the sides to make sure that that container has an opportunity to let that water ultimately drain out. It does tie back to the previous one, right? The soil makeup is going to tie directly into drainage. All right. Next up, again, all tied together, watering. For containers, I've seen it summer over summer primarily. My containers are going to dry out faster than my raised beds and when I used to garden in ground without kind of the frame of a raised bed. So that means I'm watering these more often. I'm in Chicago. Generally speaking, in the summer, we have pretty mild temps. So our highs are generally in the 80s, right? 90s, it's kind of like a red alert, right? So maybe 2 times a week, where my raised beds, I'm watering more like once a week. My green stalks, I'm putting a little bit more time into watering those, so that's again maybe 2, even 3 times a week, especially if we get closer to that 80s, hovering over the 90-degree temps. But you want to make sure that you're checking, just like I would my raised bed, putting my finger about an inch or 2 down to make sure that if the soil is damp down there, generally speaking, the rest of the container is damp enough where it doesn't need water. If I go a couple inches down and it's basically dry, this container needs water. And then once you figure that out, once you have consistent temps, you kind of know what your frequency is going to be for watering. Last but not least, something I've really struggled with, but I'm working and getting better every season, is fertilizing. I believe it's more critically important for containers than even my raised beds. So as we water, because we've made sure that we have the proper soil, we've made sure that there's drainage there, what's escaping? Not only is water escaping when we actually water, some of that good nutrients, some of that organic matter, right? So we need to make sure we replenish that. And I'm doing that by way of sometimes top dressing with compost during the season. Sometimes I'm scratching in fertilizer. I use a granular fertilizer most often. Sometimes I'm just using a water soluble fertilizer. But I'm making sure that I'm paying closer attention to the vegetables and their health, the herbs and the color of those leaves. And I'm feeding those containers more often. All right, so those are the 5 things. It's time for a container garden tour. Let's dig in. I'm clearly a big fan of growing in containers. Not only does it allow you to expand your garden space, it allows you to play around with trying to grow different things that maybe you don't want to dedicate your raised bed space to. But then it also allows you to take advantage of the nooks and crannies in your space. So let's say you have no plans on dedicating your entire backyard to your garden, as I've done. That's fine. I really hope you do, but that's fine. You can actually just grow along a fence line between the various sizes of containers, the things that can grow really well in containers. You could really explore some spaces that are really kind of untapped, if you will. So we have containers in the backyard and front yard, just a note. This is aroma that was just recently planted out 2 days ago. The start has been on my back porch for many, many weeks, but it's going to perk up. We have basil here. So I'm doing basically an herb bench this year. I got the idea of a container bench from my buddy Ben over on Sandy Bottom Homestead, and I've played around with the concept for the last few years. And in this space, and basically these size bags, I really love it. So I've grown with buckets on top of the container bench. I've done bus boy containers, which are like kind of 7-gallon-ish. So all of that said, a lot of things can fit in this space. They're sitting on top of milk crates, so super low skill DIY. That's right up my alley. There are a couple of shorts on my channel that show you kind of how I just put this together. Super easy. I have mint. I have basil here, a couple of different varieties. That's peppermint. This is chocolate mint. I picked up this start. This is candy stevia, and then I have some sage here. And then the good folks over at Handpicked Vegetables sent some gardeners, some veggies, including these 2 beautiful basil plants. There are actually multiple basil plants in here. So this is a Thai basil, and this is an Everleaf Emerald Tower basil. So my buckets, which I primarily use to grow peppers, but I do try a few different things from year to year. Like that middle container is potatoes. But for these, 4 gallons are on the end, and the rest of the buckets are 5 gallons. These are the buckets that I go into various grocery stores from time to time and ask kindly, you know, the bakery section, if they have 5-gallon buckets. Icing normally comes in them that are empty, that I can take off their hands because I use them for my garden. And more often than not, the answer is if they have them, they'll give them to me. So I have all kinds of sizes of containers, but I really like to grow in these 4 to 5-gallon buckets. So I have Scotch Bonnet, Sugar Rush, that is Cayenne. And what I do is, for the ones I start by seed, it's super easy to take that blue painter's tape that I use when I'm labeling my seeds to just transfer it here until I can kind of really see what the vegetable is, and it'll be a lot easier then to know obviously what's growing there. So I have 2 bell peppers here. I want to see what kind of a larger producing size pepper will do in this size container. Orange, and then this is going to mature to red. This is a Cali Wonder. This is a banana pepper, which I don't normally like to let the fruit put on until the plant bushes out some. So I'm probably going to harvest that and eat it immature and then let the plant continue to grow. These are 2 serrano peppers. They have struggled from my grow room to outdoors, but they're going to bush out. They're going to produce. I'm confident we still have enough time in the season. So you'll see like the containers are, this year at least, more so on the perimeter of my yard. There are a couple that are kind of inside the yard, but it's really nice to be able to kind of walk the perimeter and then be able to check on the containers. So sweet potato starts. This is more decorative. This is really more for flowers. I've done some beautiful flower arrangements, but since I had some more sweet potato slips, I should say, left, I decided to put them here. They'll be ornamental to one point, but they probably will still produce some sweet potatoes, so why not? Then I added some of those cosmos here. 2 different types of summer squash. So this is your forward hook zucchini. And then this is, I'll forget the name of it, but it's a yellow kind of patty pan like squash. This is also from the good folks over at Hand Picked Vegetables. So I've never grown this one before. For these 3, I did flowers at the bottom row. And then here I have a combination of some green onions, some basil, a few different varieties of bush beans. I have some thyme, so I've mixed in some herbs, a few more flowers, some lettuce that is just on the verge of bolting, but these leaves should be still tasty. There's more of that candy stevia. GreenStalk here, this is the marigold tier, and then I have those transplanted carrots. GreenStalk recommends like up to 3 to 5 carrots per pocket. I just did 2 for the transplants in most cases. I'm curious to see how they'll do. I have some parsley, some more sage, some additional herbs, lacinato kale. We have some peppers. You can see all the buds here. This is the Triple Delight. I grew it for the first time last year. Huge peppers they put on. I have potatoes here. Curiosity. So, you know, the new potatoes from the store, I picked some up. They had started to sprout. So since the chitting process had started already, I decided to go ahead and see what would happen if I plant them. Some purslane, celery. I have forward hook chard. I mean, come on. There are more pepper plants in here, more kale. I should move this just a little bit to give the corn a little bit of room, which is going to be easy enough because I have it on the spinner, which allows me to kind of twirl it around, but then it's also sitting on wheels. So I'll just move this to be more in line with the black planter. This is, the Scotch Bonnet. So remember we saw that as one of the last containers in the buckets, or peppers in the buckets. All right, one more GreenStalk. We'll make quick work of this. Starting from the top, tumbling Tom tomatoes. We have marigolds and celery, strawberries that I had to replace. I tried to transplant them from the front yard bed and they just didn't like it. I did salvage one of them. This one here still has life in it, but these others are new plants. And then I'm doing sweet potatoes. So sweet potatoes are going to grow here. These are the sister plants, but I also put some in these pockets in the GreenStalk. The good folks over at GreenStalk last year did every other pocket, and they filled up an entire planter and had a really nice harvest. So I love a good garden experiment. I'm going to give it a try in my area. All right, so we have a few more containers in the backyard garden, and then we have some in the front yard garden, because why not? So I feel like I need to fill in this one space that's empty, but this row of containers. So every time I show you a container in my garden, chances are it's grown in this little area here. Super convenient. This is big enough for me to walk in. So remember, we talked about being able to take advantage of nooks and crannies. Generally speaking, I won't use this space for anything else. So I can walk here, I can get my little cart here, I can move about without any inconvenience. And then I can also grow food in this space. So this is a tomato plant in the 20-gallon grow bags here, and it has started to take off. This is aroma. I have a couple of the onions I'm growing as green onions. We have the Clemson spineless okra. If you're interested, my buddy Ben and I have a seed shop on Etsy. It's in support of our channels as well as the Backyard Gardens podcast. So we have these seeds for sale along with a bunch of other summer seeds, as well as fall seeds are in stock now. So I have some more green onions, 2 containers of potatoes, and then corn, because I've seen it on the interweb done successfully in grow bags. So we're going to give that a try. All of these containers so far can grow where they are for the rest of the season. I don't have to worry about moving them around. This is probably the exception. So these 10-gallon grow bags, and then behind it are the 2.5-gallon pots. These are years and years ago, probably closer to 10 years ago, I bought like a Roma tomato plant, and maybe it's like 8 years ago. Roma tomato plant and a couple of pepper plants, and they came in this container, and so I've just saved it and reused it. Peppers do wonderfully in this container. So jalapenos, and then I have, let's see, the candy cane, that hand-picked vegetable scent, and then I have an orange bell. Curious to see how orange, well, not necessarily orange, but bell peppers, something that's going to put on like a large pepper, how it does in a small container. And then we have the banana pepper, one more potato. I think I did 1 seed potato here. Jimmy Nardello, first time growing that. I have a couple of other containers that I still need to plant in that are a couple of different sizes. So I'm going to do another pepper plant here. I'm still dropping pepper plants here in Chicago at the end of June. It's going to be fine. There's not going to be like the most production because it still needs some time to size up, but I'm still planting some of what I have. All right, off to the front yard. Oh, before we go, this is one of the 2, the other black GreenStalk that I originally bought a few years back, and I'm going to do fall plantings in it. I can't find where the water discs are for the other 2 tiers. I know it's somewhere in the garage. I'm hoping I find it before I need to plant this out. So this will either be a 5-tier, this is the leaf size, or it will be 7 tiers as it's meant to be if I'm able to find them. Look at this. I was looking for this. An Aldi pepper plant. I mean, there's still room, right? Okie doke. So I'm giving myself one more weekend. As we round out the month, I'm going to get done with this initial planting. I'm so close. Right now, I just have a few more veggies and then primarily flowers to finish up. But check out all of these pill bugs. Isn't that something? It's all that rain that's brought them out. And so I am going to, same idea, some water, to rehome them for their eternal home. We have more of our kind of rectangle-like containers. I don't think I mentioned this. This is absolutely my favorite style of container to grow in size. I picked these up from either Home Depot or Lowe's or both over the years. This is going to be scarlet runner beans. Super excited. I'm going to show you another side of it that looks like that. I do a lot of duplicates too. In one space there's a thing, and then another space there's a thing. So this space we have that same container with volunteer sunflowers. That is something, right? So excited. All right, so this pepper plant that I transplanted is struggling a bit, just based on, I think, the bully of the sunflower and how big that root system is. So the beans here could be doing better, but I think again it's the root system of the sunflower, and I'm going to focus on fertilizing these containers a bit more, which isn't something that I'm great at, but it's something I'm working on. So, oh, that grow bag. So it's up here to remind me that I have 2 more of these, that one and one more, 10-gallon, that I can plant in. And I'm thinking that I'll put it inside of this little kind of cutout of a space when I pull up the garlic. So that's what's in my mind. I'm not exactly 100% sure what I plan on planting. You see, a lot of the things I have at this point in the season are summer plants. Some of them will be turned over, and then some fall things will go in. Others will live their rest of the growing season life in those containers because they will produce for the rest of the season. So this little area here, I grew a pepper plant here last year, and I think it struggled because of the container size, maybe the gardener, but also a combination of the shading that happens. These sunflowers are coming up in front of this raised bed, which I just can't help myself. I had to let them continue to do that. The last few years they've been growing on the back side, but yeah, so all right, but I bring up this space because instead of growing vegetables here, especially at this point in the season, I'm just going to go ahead and put some flowers in this little nook. Again, thinking pop of color, thinking, you know, it'd be nice to have something that's just not green in the space. I'll show you one more version of that. So last year I had a tomato plant. I know it's kind of obstructed, but there is that favorite container of mine, and they're scarlet runner beans. And I planted them here this year. I tried this last year. It didn't work when I was growing them in ground because the roly-polies just attacked the young seedlings. So I put this container here in either corner, and I have this makeshift trellis that I've set up, put some wiring here or some string. I can't wait until the flowers start to show up for the scarlet runner beans. I didn't realize or remember that this was the color of this gladiola. That will probably die out by the time these produce, but either way, I know it in my mind now and super happy about it. One of the things that I'm able to do here is I'm able to it's a neighbor of mine. I'm able to show people that food is being grown here, right? So you look at either one of these corners, and I was joking with a neighbor about the cucumbers here. But in this corner, you're going to see green beans at some point. And everybody knows what green beans look like. Everybody knows that it's food. And it's, again, my way of sharing with folks what can be done. This is an idea I've had for some years. The only pause I have about it is people walk by if it's intrusive or not. So I'm going to give it a try this year, and we'll see. I'm going to put flowers in it, though. I would have loved to have planted nasturtiums in here, but I don't have any started, and I kind of want some color now, right? You know, I don't want to be patient here, but I'm thinking maybe one more here. I have it in the back, and maybe I can just direct sow the seeds for the nasturtiums there, while also having some flowers that I actually have transplanted into these two. I'm telling you, if there was ever a day to trade in what's now my lukewarm coffee for iced coffee, it's today. It's a warm one. But I appreciate y'all spending some time with me. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them below. And I still ask that if you love growing containers, drop where you live, because I want to get an idea of kind of what your weather is like, your favorite thing to grow in containers, and if you can, share like the size of that container. Always collecting information. Again, I know it's going to help me, and it's my hope that it helps others. All right, that's it. Look forward to seeing y'all on the next one.
Hey, Potato.
Hey, good morning. How you doing? They're coming up, aren't they? Cute. Cucumbers. Yeah, I know. Well, look, I'm waiting. That's a part of the reason why I put it out there.
Okay.
You too. Thank you.